I never imagined I'd be sitting here, telling this story. After living through wars, economic crashes, the birth of the internet, and all the changes this world has thrown at us, nothing prepared me for betrayal from within my own family. I've been a mother, a grandmother, a wife, a caretaker, and a friend. But in my later years, I thought I had earned something money can't buy: peace of mind and trust in those I raised with love. My name is Margaret. I'm 82 years old, and for most of my life, my home has been my sanctuary, the kind of place that smells like cinnamon rolls and lemon polish, where you can still find photo albums on shelves and hand-knitted blankets draped over armchairs. My family was everything to me, and in that family, I had a special place in my heart for my grandson, Jeremy. From the moment he was born, Jeremy had my heart. He had these big blue eyes, the kind you couldn't say no to. He was always asking questions, always looking for adventure. And maybe that's why it's so hard for me to tell this story, because this isn't about a stranger. It's not about some scammer from across the world. It's about someone I loved with every fiber of my being, who looked me in the eye and took something more than money. He took my trust. I've had my share of loss. I buried my husband 14 years ago. My eldest daughter passed unexpectedly 5 years later. And through it all, Jeremy was my light. He'd come by on weekends, help me change light bulbs, fix the leaky sink, even set up my TV remote when it decided to stop working. I made him cookies, slipped him $20 bills when I knew he was struggling, and always believed in him even when others had doubts. He had a rough patch in his 20s, got into some trouble with loans, had a few jobs that didn't pan out, but I always told him, "Jeremy, no matter how hard life gets, you can always come to me." And I meant it. I really did. Until one day, he came to me without saying a word. It started like any other morning. I had just finished my crossword and was sipping my tea when the phone rang. It was a strange number, some dealership, asking me to confirm my application. "What application?" I asked. They said it was for a new car, a luxury SUV, registered under my name. I laughed at first. I thought surely it was a mistake. Maybe they had the wrong Margaret. But then they read back my full name, address, and social security number. My heart dropped. It felt like someone had punched me right in the chest. My legs went weak. I barely made it to the chair. How could this be? I hadn't applied for anything. I hadn't even left the house in days. I asked them to send me all the documents they had. They agreed, but I already had a sinking feeling. This wasn't a mistake. This was personal. I hung up and called my bank, then my credit card companies. One by one, the puzzle started to form. Someone had used my information not just for a car but for credit cards, online purchases, and even a loan. I was stunned, violated, but worst of all, confused. Who would do this to me? It wasn't long before the dealership's paperwork arrived, and there it was, a signature that looked just like mine, an address I recognized, and a cosign, my Jeremy. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe someone stole his identity too. Maybe it was a mix-up. But the more I dug, the clearer it became. Jeremy had used my information, my social security number, my credit history, all to buy a car he didn't even bother to tell me about. The betrayal was like a knife in my back. And every hour that passed, the wound seemed to twist deeper. This wasn't just a lie. This was a crime. And it came from someone I had trusted, with my house keys, my finances, my very heart. I tried to call him. No answer. I texted, "Jeremy, we need to talk." Silence. And that's when I knew. He knew what he had done, and he was hiding from it. That night, I didn't sleep. My thoughts ran wild. Was I going to lose my house, my savings? Would I end up in court? Worse, was I going to have to press charges against my own grandson? And before we dive deeper into what happened next, please, if you're watching this video, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you love? Have you ever questioned everything you believed because of one person's actions? If this story resonates with you in any way, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment below. Your support means the world, and believe me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Before all of this, before the bank calls, the paperwork, the heartache, Jeremy was my pride and joy, my golden boy. He was born in the spring of 1993. I remember the day so clearly. It was one of those crisp mornings where the sun shines but the air still holds a chill. My daughter Lisa was in labor for 19 hours. When he finally arrived, the whole family crowded into the hospital room just to catch a glimpse of the baby, with the loudest cry we'd ever heard. He had a head full of dark curls and the most serious little face, like he already knew the world was a strange place. From the start, Jeremy was different, curious, sensitive, always asking why. He'd follow me into the garden, point at the sky and say, "Grandma, where do the clouds go at night?" I'd laugh and say, "They're just like us, Jeremy, they rest." He loved books. I remember reading him Goodnight Moon and Where the Wild Things Are until the pages were falling apart. He'd curl up next to me, his head on my shoulder, and beg for just one more story. And I always gave in, because I saw something in him as sparked. Like maybe he'd be a writer, or a teacher, or something great. As he grew, life wasn't always kind to Jeremy. His parents split when he was 8. Lisa tried her best, but being a single mom isn't easy. He spent more and more weekends with me. We'd bake cookies, go to church, and take long walks by the lake. He told me everything, his fears, his dreams. I felt like I knew his heart better than anyone. In high school, he started to struggle, fell in with the wrong crowd, skipped classes, got into fights, but I never gave up on him, not once. I showed up to every parent-teacher meeting. I paid for his summer tutoring. I even bought him a car when he turned 17, hoping it would give him some freedom to stay out of trouble. After high school, things got worse. He tried college, dropped out, took a job, lost it, tried another. That one didn't stick either. But every time he fell, I was there to catch him. I loaned him money. I let him stay in my guest room. I even helped him avoid an eviction once. People told me I was too soft, that I was enabling him, but I believed in him. I saw the little boy in the garden asking about clouds. The boy who once told me he'd build me a house with all the cookies in the world. He wasn't perfect, but he was mine. Looking back now, I wondered, did I blind myself to the truth? Was I so desperate to see the good in him that I ignored the warning signs, the small lies, the excuses, the times he avoided eye contact when asking for just one more loan? Because when someone you love steals from you, it doesn't start with a grand act. It starts small, with trust, with the benefit of the doubt, with love. I don't know when Jeremy decided it was okay to use me. Maybe it was desperation, maybe entitlement, or maybe he thought, Grandma will never find out, but I did, and it broke me. And if you've ever had someone you love break your heart, not romantically, but deeply, like only family can leave me a comment below. Tell me your story. You're not alone. They say hindsight is 20/20, and looking back now, I see the trail of breadcrumbs my grandson left behind. At the time, they seemed like nothing, little oddities that I brushed off with grandmotherly affection. But as each strange event added up, I realized I had ignored the signs that something was terribly wrong. It began with my mail. I'm an old-fashioned woman. I like holding a physical letter in my hands, reading through the pages like people did before smartphones made everything so impersonal. I look forward to opening the mailbox each day, usually filled with grocery coupons or the occasional birthday card from a church friend. But about a month before everything came to light, I noticed a change. There were unfamiliar envelopes, ones I hadn't subscribed to, credit card companies, car insurance brochures, even dealership flyers with my name printed right on the label. At first, I thought, oh, just more junk mail. But when I opened one by accident, thinking it was my pharmacy statement, my heart sank. It was a pre-approval letter for a car loan, addressed to me, yes, but not something I ever applied for. I'd driven the same dependable Oldsmobile for over a decade. The idea of buying a new car was the last thing on my mind. Then, the phone calls started. Automated voices asking for confirmation on applications I never submitted. Some were about insurance, others were about financing. One day, I answered a call from a cheerful young woman asking if I was still interested in the red Dodge Charger I had inquired about. I laughed nervously and said, I think you have the wrong number, dear. But my gut told me otherwise. Around the same time, I began to notice subtle shifts in my financial statements. I've always been meticulous about my checkbook. I keep a ledger and balance it twice a month. I learned that from my late husband, Harold, who worked at the mill and never missed a penny. But this time, there were small discrepancies I didn't recognize. An online fee here, a down payment draft there. When I called the bank, the woman on the other end assured me it must have been a mistake. These things happen, she said. I wanted to believe her, What I didn't want to believe was that my grandson, my own flesh and blood, could be involved. Elijah had always been so respectful. He called me every Sunday, helped me set up my tablet. He even fixed the gutters last spring without asking for a dime. He was studying business at the community college and had dreams of opening his own detailing shop. I was proud of him. So when he started asking more questions about my finances, I assumed he was just trying to learn. "Nana, how do you pay bills online?" he'd asked. Or, "Can I help set up automatic payments for you?" Looking back, those questions were a test of slow probing of boundaries. At the time, I thought I was just helping a young man learn to manage responsibility. In reality, I was slowly being maneuvered into a corner. It wasn't until one afternoon, while dusting, that I found the envelope that made everything click. It had slipped behind the end table in the den. I picked it up, expecting another circular. But this one was different. It was from the DMV, and it had my name, address and vehicle registration information I didn't recognize. A 2022 model, something expensive, and registered to my name. My hands began to tremble. I immediately called the DMV hotline and asked them to verify the information. Sure enough, a vehicle had been registered under my name just 2 weeks earlier. When I asked where the car was titled, the woman hesitated. "It was processed through a dealership in town," she said. My heart sank even deeper. I hung up the phone and sat in silence. I tried to deny the truth, but it was screaming in my ears. Elijah, my sweet Elijah. In that moment, a million memories flooded my mind. Him sitting in my kitchen as a child, eating oatmeal with cinnamon, holding my hand when Harold passed, making me laugh when I felt alone. And now, the realization was too heavy to carry, but I had to face it. I had to know more, because if it was true, if Elijah had used my name, my identity, to make such a huge purchase, then everything I believed about our relationship would shatter. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that. Still, deep down, I knew the only way forward was through the truth. Topic 3. The confrontation. Why would you do this to me? When I finally confronted my grandson, my heart was already shattered. But I held on to a faint hope that there had been some kind of mistake, that maybe I misunderstood something, that perhaps there was still a reasonable explanation. But as the words began to leave my lips, I saw the look on his face. Not surprise, not guilt, but annoyance. That was when I knew I wasn't just imagining things. He had really done it. It started with a simple phone call. I asked him to come over for tea. He arrived with that same innocent smile he's had since he was a boy. For a moment, I almost forgot what he had done. But then I saw the glint of his new watch, the flash of a car key on his belt loop, and reality came crashing back. "Sit down, darling," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I poured us both a cup of tea chamomile, the same kind I'd brewed for him when he was little and couldn't sleep. We sat at the kitchen table, sunlight pouring through the curtains, and I looked into his eyes. "I got a call from the bank," I began. "They were asking about a loan I never applied for. And then I checked my credit. There's a car loan in my name, and a vehicle registered to my address. Do you know anything about this?" He stiffened in his chair. His hand, which had been lifting the cup to his lips, paused mid-air. He didn't answer right away. "Grandma, I can explain. That's what they always say, isn't it? The ones who get caught." I waited. He put the cup down and rubbed the back of his neck. "I didn't think it would hurt anything. I needed a car. I didn't have any credit, and you weren't using yours. I meant to pay it back." Meant to. That phrase stung more than the confession itself. I felt my jaw tremble, but I held it together. "You stole my name, Liam. You forged documents. You committed fraud. And you didn't even tell me. You didn't even ask." His eyes darted around the room, like a trapped animal looking for an escape. "I didn't think you'd say yes. I didn't have any other options. No other options. You have a family. You have me. You always had options." He leaned forward, his voice turning sharp. "I'm sorry, all right. But what's the big deal? You don't even drive anymore. You don't need your credit. I needed help, and I took it." There it was, the entitlement, the sheer gall of it. I stood up slowly, trying to steady my breathing. "Liam, this isn't just about credit scores or driving. It's about trust, about respect. You took something from me that wasn't yours. And now, you've left me with debt, with consequences I have to face." He looked away. "I didn't mean to hurt you, but you did." There was a long silence between us. The ticking clock above the stove was the only sound. You always said you loved me," I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. "But love doesn't look like this. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't steal." He swallowed hard. I was desperate, and I was trusting. That's when I asked the question that had been haunting me since the day I found out. "Why would you do this to me?" His answer wasn't what I hoped for. "Because I thought you'd never find out." That was it. That was the truth. Naked and cold. He thought I was old, forgetful, weak. He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought I would never be the wiser. Day. Something broke between us. I wish I could say we resolved it right then and there. "I wish I could tell you," he cried, apologized sincerely, and offered to fix everything. But that's not what happened. He left my house without finishing his tea, mumbling something about needing time to think, and I was left alone in my kitchen, with a cup of chamomile growing cold and a heart that had aged 10 years in one afternoon. If this part of the story moved you, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences, and subscribe for more real-life stories like this. Your support helps keep these voices heard and these lessons shared. Topic 4. The fallout, calls, letters, and legal trouble after the confrontation. Things spiraled faster than I ever imagined. I thought facing my grandson would be the hardest part, but it turns out, the emotional aftermath and legal mess that followed was even more shattering. The very next morning, the phone started ringing. It wasn't friends calling to check in. It wasn't the sweet neighbors asking if I needed groceries. It was collections, car payments, insurers, repossession agents, one after another, an avalanche of phone calls asking for someone I didn't recognize anymore. Me, but not me. The name was mine, but the debts were not. I answered one call from a bank I didn't even know I had an account with. "Mrs. Clarkson, your auto loan is 4 months past due. We'll need immediate payment or repossession proceedings will begin." My hands trembled so badly I could barely hold the phone. I explained to the man that I hadn't bought a car in over a decade, and certainly not in the last year. "Then why is this registered under your name and social security number, ma'am?" he asked. That was the moment it hit me. It wasn't just a bad decision on Danny's part, it was a crime. And he had dragged me, knowingly or not, into the middle of a legal hurricane. Over the next week, I received official letters, bold red stamps, screamed past due, final notice, and even legal action pending. I stacked them in a shoebox and set them on the kitchen counter, as if organizing the chaos would make it feel more manageable. It didn't. Then the knock came. A tall man in a suit holding a clipboard. He asked to speak to Mrs. Margaret Clarkson. I nodded, my knees already weak. He handed me a notice of pending litigation for identity fraud. Me, being accused of fraud, after 79 years of paying every bill on time and living as honestly as I could. Someone wanted to drag me into court. "We believe the documents were forged," the man said, softening a little when he saw the tears in my eyes. "But we need statements, evidence. You'll want to get a lawyer." That night, I sat in my armchair with the TV on mute and the stack of letters on my lap. I stared at the wall for hours, too stunned to cry, too numb to move. Here's where I want you to lean in, dear listener. If you're watching this video, please comment below. If you've ever experienced a betrayal like this, I need to know I'm not alone, that I'm not the only grandmother who's ever had to pick up the pieces of someone else's mistakes. And while you're here, please like this video. It helps more people find stories like mine. And subscribe if you want to hear more truths that the world needs to hear. I spent the next few days calling legal aid offices, banks, and credit bureaus. I filed reports, froze my credit, and disputed every charge Danny had made in my name. Each call felt like reliving the betrayal over and over again. I had to read the police report to strangers, explain how my own grandson used my birth date and my social security number to impersonate me. Some were understanding, some weren't. "Are you sure you didn't authorize this purchase?" one woman asked me. I nearly shouted back, but I held it together, because anger wouldn't solve anything. I just had to keep going. The hardest part wasn't the paperwork. It wasn't even the looming threat of court. It was the silence from Danny. He didn't call, he didn't text, he didn't show up to explain himself. He disappeared like a ghost. That hurt more than anything. And then, one morning, I opened the door and found the letter. No stamp, no envelope, just a folded sheet of paper on my doormat. It read, "Grandma, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought I could fix it before anyone found out. I'm scared. Please don't hate me, Dee." That was it. No return address. No phone number. Just that short apology. Did I cry? Of course I did. But it wasn't just sadness, it was grief. Grief for the boy I thought I knew. For the innocence that was gone. For the peace that had been taken from me. My lawyer said we could pursue criminal charges, and legally, I had every right. But emotionally, spiritually, it was a decision I never imagined I'd have to make. Turn in my own grandson to the authorities or let him walk away without consequences. That's the question I'll dive into in the next part of this story. Because this wasn't just about a car. This was about betrayal, identity, and trust. So please stay with me. Don't miss what happened next. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I need your support. I need your voice. Let's make sure stories like this are heard and never forgotten. After learning the full extent of what my grandson had done using my name, my credit, and my trust to buy a car I didn't even know existed, my heart was torn in two. The betrayal still felt raw, like a burn that hadn't even begun to scab. I'd gone from baking cookies for him as a boy to discovering he'd manipulated and violated me as a grown man. I sat at my dining room table, papers spread out in front of me, bank statements, police notes, the loan paperwork with my forged signature staring me right in the face. It all felt surreal. There it was in black and white. My name, my address, my credit history, and a car registered to someone else. Him. My own flesh and blood. The officer who came by was kind, but blunt. "You have every right to press charges," he said. "This is identity theft, plain and simple." And it was. But was it that simple? Really? I looked out the window, where the leaves were turning gold and red. Autumn was always my favorite time of year. But this fall, the chill wasn't just in the air, it was in my soul. I couldn't help but remember the boy who used to rake those same leaves into piles just so he could jump into them. That same boy had now left me to deal with thousands of dollars of debt and shame. So the question stood before me: do I press charges or do I protect him? This wasn't just a legal decision. It was a moral one, a maternal one, and it was the hardest choice I've ever had to make. One part of me screamed, hold him accountable. He needs to learn that choices have consequences, that love doesn't. Give him a free pass to commit crimes. But another part whispered, what if this ruins him forever? What if this is the moment that defines his whole life? I cried that night, truly cried, not just for what had been done to me, but for what I would have to do next. Because no matter what choice I made, someone I loved was going to get hurt. What would you do if it were your grandchild? Could you hand them over to the police, knowing it might destroy their future? Or would you let it go and risk being hurt again? That's the crossroads I was standing at. I reached out to his mother, my daughter, and told her everything. She was mortified, shocked, angry, but her response was also clouded by guilt. Mom, she said quietly, I had no idea, but maybe he needs help. Real help. That made the decision even harder. Because maybe this wasn't just about punishment. Maybe it was about breaking a cycle. About choosing justice and compassion. If this video has touched something inside you, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from others who've faced impossible choices like this one. And please subscribe if you want to hear how this story ends. Because in the next part, I'll tell you exactly what I decided to do and how my grandson responded. Stick around. You won't believe what came next. The day I called my grandson to come over, I could barely hold the phone steady. My hands shook as I dialed his number, and when he answered with a casual, "Hey, Grandma," as if nothing had happened, I felt a mix of rage, heartbreak, and longing. How could he still sound like the boy I once read bedtime stories to? "Can you come by this afternoon?" I asked. "We need to talk." He hesitated, but agreed. Gave me a few hours to prepare. I sat in the living room, next to a folder full of printed evidence, the forged documents, my credit report, even the police officer's business card, just in case. When he walked in, I saw the guilt on his face right away. He tried to smile, but his eyes darted toward the table. Maybe he already knew this wasn't just a casual visit. I didn't waste time. I opened the folder and laid it all out in front of him. The air in the room turned to stone. "You know what this is?" I asked, my voice low. He didn't answer at first. He just stared. Then he said something that knocked the wind out of me. "I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how." "Tell me." After signing a loan in my name, buying a car, and letting me get calls from debt collectors, why, David, I asked, why would you do something like this to me? He didn't answer right away. When he finally did, his voice cracked. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was in a bad place. I lost my job. I couldn't get approved on my own, and I was desperate. I wanted to believe him. God knows I did. But something about the way he spoke, vagueness, the shiftiness in his eyes, it didn't sit right. You never thought to ask, I said. I would have helped you. We could have figured something out. I didn't want you to say no. That stung. Not just because he assumed I'd refuse, but because he didn't give me the chance to say yes. I asked him point blank, are you sorry, or are you just sorry you got caught? He paused. Both, I guess. That told me everything I needed to know. He offered to pay it back, said he'd get a second job. But I knew better. I knew this wasn't just about money. It was about trust. And trust, once broken, is not easily repaired. To everyone watching right now, have you ever forgiven someone who didn't seem truly sorry? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your stories. That moment between us. It changed everything. He wasn't the little boy who used to draw me pictures. He was a man, now flawed, scared, and maybe still lying. But the question lingered. Was he redeemable? Please like this video if you've ever struggled with forgiveness. And don't forget to subscribe, because next, I'll reveal what happened when I gave him a second chance, and what he did with it. Stay with me. You need to hear what came next. Forgiveness is a strange thing. Everyone talks about how important it is, how it frees you from bitterness and brings peace to your heart. But what they don't tell you is that it's hard. Especially when the person you're trying to forgive is someone you once held in your arms and called your pride and joy. After David's confession, the house felt hollow. He left that day after promising to make things right. But even after the door shut behind him, the silence felt loud. Kept staring at that folder full of evidence, hoping it would vanish, as if erasing the proof could erase the pain. That night, I cried, not just because of what he did, but because of what it meant. He saw me not as someone to protect, but as a resource, someone he could use, someone he could exploit. Still, part of me couldn't stop wondering, was it my fault? Had I spoiled him too much? Had I been too soft, too trusting? I raised my children with kindness, taught them that family came first. But somewhere along the line, that love was twisted into something else. Over the next few days, David called a few times. I let most of the calls go to voicemail. Each one was similar. He was sorry. He needed to make things right. He wanted to earn my trust again. But it all sounded rehearsed, like he was reading from a script. Then, one Sunday morning, he showed up unannounced. He brought groceries, my favorite bread, the kind I used to buy when he was a child. He tried to sit at the kitchen table like he used to, tried to act like everything could go back to normal. But things weren't normal, and I told him so. I'm not ready to pretend everything's okay, I said. This isn't just about groceries or apologies. He looked down at his hands. I know, I just thought, maybe we could start small. Small, that's what he called rebuilding trust. And maybe he was right. So I set boundaries, clear ones. He would have to pay back every cent, no excuses. He would not use my name, my mail, my address, or my finances for anything, ever again. And if I felt uncomfortable, Levin I would contact the authorities. He agreed, and for the first time in weeks, I saw something in his eyes that resembled the boy I once knew. Was it guilt, regret, or maybe the tiniest spark of maturity? Only time would tell. Now I want to ask you, do you think people like David deserve second chances? Or are some betrayals too deep to recover from? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters more than you know. And don't forget, hit the like button if this part of the story resonates with you. It helps the channel grow and shows me you're here with me, every step of the way. Coming up next, what happened when I thought we were healing, only to find out that the damage ran deeper than I ever expected. I thought the worst was over. David had apologized. I had set boundaries. He seemed to be trying to change. But the truth about betrayals like this is that they leave a trail, and sometimes those trails come back to haunt you when you least expect them. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was absent-mindedly tending to my plants, listening to the kitchen radio, when there was a knock on the front door. It wasn't just any knock, it was firm, impatient, like someone who didn't intend to leave until they answered. If you've ever had a bad feeling for no reason, you'll understand how my heart raced at that moment. I cautiously opened the door and was met with a man in a tie, holding a briefcase. He didn't smile. He just confirmed my name and said something that made me freeze completely. "I'm here on behalf of Newcrest Auto Financing. You're in arrears on the 2022 Nissan Rogue purchased in your name." I froze. The car, the same one David had bought using my identity. I thought that by finding out and confronting him, it was all over. But here was a reminder that lies don't disappear just because they're exposed. I explained to the man that I had been the victim of fraud, that my own grandson had used my documents without consent. He was polite but cold. He said that, legally, the contract was in my name, and that the fraud investigation had not yet been concluded. And worse, if the payments were not made, the vehicle would be seized, and my name would be restricted by the SPC, Sarasa, and, in the United States, on the credit report, ruining my credit score. I closed the door and sat on the couch as if my BAFTA could no longer bear the weight. I was shaking with indignation and helplessness. How much would this situation affect me? My retirement was at stake, my peace of mind, my reputation. When I called David, he tried to explain himself, but his voice no longer inspired the same confidence. He said he was working on it, that he had already started the process with the financial institution, that everything was under control. But, clearly, it wasn't. That was the day I understood. Sometimes, the person who hurts you has no idea how much damage they've caused. Or, worse, they know, but they choose to minimize it. Asterisk, if you've ever felt like someone messed up your life, and then tried to act like it was just a mistake, comment below. Your story may comfort other people who are going through the same situation. And please, if this story touched your heart or made you indignant, like this video right now. This will help this content reach more people who need to hear real stories like this. In the next chapter, what I did to recover my identity and the revelation that David tried to hide until the end. You won't want to miss it. After the debt collector's visit, I realized I couldn't sit back and hope things would fix themselves. I was tired, not just physically, but emotionally. There's a special kind of exhaustion that comes from being betrayed by someone you love, someone you raised. Someone who still called you grandma with the same smile he wore as a boy. Even after what he did, I knew if I didn't fight to clear my name, no one else would. The next morning, I gathered every document I had, my ID, social security card, bank statements, and the fraudulent car contract, and walked into the local police station. My hands trembled as I recounted everything to the officer at the front desk. I felt humiliated, but also determined. This is identity theft, I told him, and I want to press charges. The officer's eyebrows raised. "And who committed the theft, ma'am?" "My grandson." The words came out like broken glass. Saying it out loud made it even more real. But I knew that pretending everything was fine wouldn't make the mess go away. Protecting David from the consequences wouldn't protect me, it would only enable him further. From there, everything became a whirlwind. I filed a formal police report. The department opened an investigation. I spoke with fraud departments, credit bureaus, and even had to hire a lawyer who specialized in elder financial abuse. It wasn't cheap, it wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't quick. I had to write letters, submit affidavits, make phone calls daily. There were moments I wanted to give up, especially when I was put on hold for over an hour just to dispute one false account. But I kept going, because I knew I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for every grandparent, every elderly person who's been taken advantage of by someone they loved. We're not helpless, we're not invisible. We deserve justice too. And slowly, things began to shift. The credit bureaus froze, the fraudulent inquiries. The car dealership confirmed David had signed the contract himself, using my stolen info. The police gathered enough evidence to proceed. David never thought I'd actually report him. He believed I'd be too ashamed, too soft, too forgiving. But love isn't about letting people walk all over you. It's about boundaries. And sometimes, it's about tough love. If you've ever had to stand up for yourself, especially against someone close to you, I want you to comment below. Your story matters, and I read every comment you leave. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. These are true stories, and we share them not to spread pain, but to show strength, survival, and the power of truth. As we move into the final chapter, I want to leave you with this thought. Sometimes, reclaiming your identity doesn't just mean cleaning your credit or clearing your name. Sometimes, it means rediscovering who you are beneath all the pain, and learning to stand taller than ever before. Stay with me because in the final chapter, I'll share the emotional moment that changed everything, and how I chose to move forward, not just as a grandmother, but as a woman who refuses to be erased. There are some goodbyes you never expect to write. You imagine life giving you decades of moments with your grandchildren, laughter, birthdays, holidays, watching them grow into men and women you can be proud of. You never think you'll have to say goodbye to protect yourself from the very person you helped raise. But that's where I found myself sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, a trembling pen in my hand, and a heart that felt both heavy and hollow. I wrote a letter, not because I wanted to hurt David, and not because I believed it would fix everything, but because I needed to say goodbye on my terms. I needed to speak the truth, not out of anger, but out of sorrow, and maybe out of love that had been stretched too thin to survive. Here's what I wrote. Dear David, you were once the light of my life. I still remember the day you were born, how your little fingers curled around mine like they were made to hold on to. Hope I watched you grow, cheered you on, picked you up when you stumbled. I never thought I'd have to protect myself from you. What you did using my name, stealing my trust, leaving me to clean up the mess, hurt more than I have words for. Not just because of the money or the embarrassment, but because I thought I knew your heart. I thought I mattered to you. But I won't let this be the end of me. I won't carry shame for your choices. I reported you not because I hate you, but because I love myself enough to say, enough. This letter is not a plea. It's not even a warning. It's my goodbye. I hope one day you'll understand what you threw away. I hope you'll heal. But that healing won't happen in my home anymore. Goodbye, David. Grandma folded it neatly. I didn't mail it. I didn't need to. Writing it was enough. That moment was my turning point. It was the line in the sand. I wasn't just reclaiming my identity legally. I was reclaiming who I was emotionally. Someone who had given everything to her family and finally chose herself. If you've ever had to let go of someone you love for your own peace, I want to hear your story in the comments. Let's create a space where healing isn't hidden and strength is celebrated. Asterisk, tell me, have you ever written a letter like this? One that was more for your soul than for the other person to read? And please like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear they're not alone. Every view, every comment, every moment you spend here helps this channel grow, and helps voices like mine continue to be heard. Asterisk, I'm still here. I'm still standing, and I hope that if you're facing something like this, you know that you can stand tall. Thank you for being with me through this journey. I'll be back next week with another story from my heart. Until then, take care of yours, Grandma.